For 38 years, Margaret had believed in a life built on trust, love, and shared dreams. She had met Robert when they were just teenagers, two souls drawn together by curiosity, laughter, and the reckless optimism of youth. They married at 23, full of promises whispered under starlit skies, and built a family together, a daughter and a son, a comfortable home filled with warmth, and routines that felt like a sanctuary. To the outside world, they were the perfect couple, the kind of family that inspired admiration, the kind of love that seemed unshakable. Margaret had devoted herself to her family. She had set aside her own ambitions to nurture their dreams, creating a home where joy and security were constants. She remembered late nights helping her children with homework, quiet dinners with Robert after long workdays, and the shared laughter echoing through their living room. Life, she thought, was beautiful. Every choice she had made felt justified by the love she believed she shared with her husband, but cracks, Margaret would soon realize, had been hiding beneath the surface, and visible yet relentless. At first, they were subtle: a phone call Robert brushed off, a vague excuse for a weekend trip, a secretive glance that lingered too long. Margaret tried to ignore the tiny pangs of unease. She was confident in her marriage, believing that love could weather the smallest storms. Yet, deep inside, a whisper of doubt refused to be silenced. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. While sorting through old drawers, Margaret came across a photograph she had never seen before. Her heart skipped a beat. There was Robert, smiling warmly at another woman, his arm wrapped around her in an intimacy that should have belonged to Margaret alone. A chill ran through her veins, freezing her in place. Shock, disbelief, and an unfamiliar, bitter pain coursed through her. The life she thought she knew, every kiss, every whispered "I love you," was suddenly thrown into question. Margaret's mind raced with questions, each one stabbing more deeply than the last. How long had this been happening? Why had he hidden it? And, most painfully, had she been living in a lie all along? Her emotions twisted into a storm: grief, anger, confusion, and a simmering need for justice. Yet, even as the pain threatened to overwhelm her, a spark of determination ignited. She realized betrayal did not make her weak. If anything, it revealed a strength she had never known. Margaret decided that she would not act impulsively. Revenge, she understood, required patience, strategy, and precision. She would observe, gather evidence, and, when the time was right, reveal the truth in a way Robert could not ignore. That night, as she stared at the photograph, Margaret understood something profound. Her life would never be the same. The woman who trusted blindly was gone. In her place stood someone fierce, resilient, and ready to reclaim her dignity. And to make sure the man who betrayed her would face the consequences of his actions, Margaret's mind raced in the days following the photograph's discovery. Every memory, every conversation with Robert, suddenly felt tainted. She couldn't confront him yet, not until she understood the full extent of his deception. Patience, she reminded herself. Revenge, she knew, required precision, not impulsiveness. She began to observe him closely, taking note of subtle details she had once ignored. The way he answered phone calls late at night with a little too much hesitation, the emails he deleted too quickly, the sudden excuses for trips she never questioned before. Each small act, once innocent, now appeared sinister. Margaret meticulously recorded every slip, every lie, every suspicious detail. She was no longer the naive wife who trusted blindly. She was a strategist, quietly building the evidence that would one day expose him. Then came the revelation that shook her even further. While looking through old documents for other clues, she noticed discrepancies in their finances, bank statements, investment accounts, and transfers she had never authorized or even known existed. Robert had been hiding more than an affair. He had built an entirely separate life, invisible to her, while she sacrificed her own ambitions to support their family. Anger bubbled inside her, but beneath it, a sense of clarity began to form. She understood that this betrayal was not random. It was calculated, deliberate, and designed to remain hidden for decades. Even as Margaret's anger grew, her heart ached with memory. She recalled the man she had loved, his comforting touch during her mother's illness, the whispered "I love you" in quiet moments, the laughter shared on long walks. The duality was unbearable. How could the same man who had been tender and devoted also live a life of lies and deceit? Her emotions twisted, grief and rage mingling with the faintest echo of residual love, and then, the impossible happened. Margaret had been feeling unusually fatigued, a subtle weariness she tried to dismiss as age. But when her doctor called with the results of her latest blood test, the words made her blood run cold. "Mrs. Whitman, your test reveals something impossible. Genetically, your children could not be Robert's." Her hands trembled as she processed the revelation. Could this be real? Was it a medical error, or had fate revealed the deepest truth of her life? She demanded clarity, and the doctor confirmed it. Robert was not the biological father of her children. Every embrace, every lullaby, every promise he had made had been a lie. The betrayal was no longer just emotional or financial, it was the core of her family's existence. Margaret's grief turned into determination. She realized the power of knowledge. The truth was a weapon, sharper than anger, stronger than tears. Robert had underestimated her. She would plan carefully, exposing him not with fury, but with undeniable precision. The woman who had endured 38 years of betrayal would rise from the shadows, wielding justice that was both sweet and inevitable. Margaret knew that revenge could not be rushed. She had discovered Robert's betrayal, the hidden life, and the impossible truth about their children, but simply confronting him would not suffice. Sweet revenge required patience, precision, and the careful orchestration of every detail. She began to plan, quietly and deliberately, like a composer crafting a symphony of truth. Her first step was gathering allies. Surprisingly, the woman in the photograph, Clara, a former colleague of Robert's, was willing to cooperate. Margaret had initially feared that Clara might resent her or demand secrecy, but she, too, had been deceived. The two women began piecing together the timeline of Robert's secret life, the hidden trips, the clandestine messages, the investments and accounts kept from Margaret, and the emotional betrayals that had spanned decades. Each discovery fueled Margaret's resolve. The tapestry of lies Robert had woven over 38 years was more intricate and more damning than she had imagined. Margaret's strategy was methodical. She collected documents, printed screenshots, and archived every piece of evidence. Every phone call, every bank transaction, every secret meeting was cataloged and timestamped. She did not act on impulse, nor did she allow anger to cloud her judgment. Instead, she envisioned the moment when Robert would face the truth, not in a rage-fueled argument, but in a setting where the weight of his deceit could crush him silently yet completely. The opportunity arose with her annual family gathering, an event Robert assumed would be ordinary and celebratory. Margaret invited friends, extended family, and even colleagues, carefully ensuring that witnesses were present for the revelations she had planned. On the day of the gathering, she moved with quiet confidence, radiating warmth and grace. Robert, unsuspecting, smiled at her side, unaware that the life he had manipulated for decades was about to unravel. One by one, Margaret revealed the truths she had meticulously collected. She presented the financial records, the hidden accounts, and the incriminating messages. She exposed Clara's story, linking Robert's affair to the years of deception he had thought were invisible. Her voice was calm and steady, almost gentle, yet each word struck like a hammer on fragile glass. Robert stumbled, fumbling excuses, but Margaret had anticipated every lie, every weak defense. Then came the ultimate revelation, the truth about their children. Margaret disclosed the impossible genetics, explaining that Robert was not their biological father. The room fell silent, the weight of decades of lies pressing down. Her children stared, stunned, and Margaret held their hands, offering reassurance. The pain was real, but the dignity and truth was theirs to claim. In that moment, Margaret realized that her revenge was complete, not through cruelty, but through undeniable truth. Robert's world, built on deceit, had collapsed quietly and irrevocably. The woman he had underestimated for decades had risen, strong, composed, and victorious. The weeks after the revelation were a quiet storm. Margaret felt a strange mixture of relief, sorrow, and liberation. The betrayal had cut her to the core, but it had also awakened a strength she had never known. She no longer felt the heavy weight of illusions or the lingering shadow of deceit. Instead, she began to rebuild her life, brick by brick, determined to reclaim her joy, dignity, and independence, her first step was her children. Margaret spent long afternoons with them, sharing tears, laughter, and stories of resilience. She reminded them that while Robert had failed them, love was not measured by biology alone. The bond they had shared with him, though built on falsehoods, had still shaped their lives. Margaret emphasized that the truth, though painful, was a shield as much as it was a revelation. Together, they found a new sense of closeness, forged from honesty and trust. Margaret also turned her attention inward, rediscovering passions she had long set aside. She picked up her paintbrush again, filling canvases with colors that mirrored her emotional journey, fiery reds of anger, soft blues of healing, and golden yellows of hope. She volunteered at local charities, offering wisdom and support to others who had suffered in silence, transforming her own pain into purpose. Each day was a reminder that life, though unpredictable and often cruel, could also be beautiful when lived with courage and authenticity. Robert, meanwhile, faced the consequences of his actions. Friends and colleagues distanced themselves, unable to reconcile the man they had admired with the lies he had woven. His carefully constructed life began to crumble, leaving him isolated and reflective. Margaret did not gloat, but she observed with quiet satisfaction. The power he had wielded over her for decades had vanished, replaced by the undeniable